Welcome to Garden of the Spirit, the class studying apples from the orchard. The class meets in Longmeadow, Massachusetts. The center of the universe is held in memory of Malka Rus Bas Moshe, Margaret Vogel of blessed memory. Apples from the orchard contain selections of teachings of Kabbalah from the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, based on the weekly Torah portion, superbly translated and explained by Rabbi Moshe Wisniewski. And we are on page.
We're on 953
Bottom right.
at the bottom. This.
Okay, we're on page 953.
That's what I thought.
This is why we're getting into talking about the tefillin. This we didn't do. This we didn't do.
All right.
We did-
Ready?
Hold on. Yes. No, we're not ready.
Okay. We're not ready.
So I want to do a little recap because last week we spoke about going to war and fighting, not out of hatred and viciousness or revenge, but out of great kindness, out of a feeling of actually we did say kindness, but out of a feeling of fighting for a cause, more like fighting for a cause, fighting for godliness, and we had different discussions and how that relates to us, how that affects us in our lives.
Follow up. The judge decided in my favor in that case.
Okay, Mazel Tov,
Huh?
Mazel
The
Tov.
case
And
I was talking.
especially, I want to thank you for sharing. I sent you a message
Yeah.
that I find this very meaningful, and I think this is the most valuable part of the classes from the people's input, and certainly not my pontificating and pompositating, but from the input and the people, and people see in their how this works, practically speaking. It's probably a little more that I wanted to recap, but I don't remember what it was. So yes, I know what it was. I knew what it was.
The grounds of the decision were based
Yes.
based on not the anger part, but the righteousness part, the caring part that was written out.
What do you mean the righteousness?
The judge found
What should be.
that
Yeah.
my client's suffering was more than the other person's suffering, and the attractiveness of the case was causing her more problems, and that his husband's failure to provide basic certain documents in compliance with an order,
Yeah.
hiding his income, was wrong.
Okay.
And he was punished for that.
The righteousness of the cause. Thank you.
Righteousness of the
I know
cause.
what I wanted.
So the
So
righteousness of the cause went up.
So just to give you an idea, sometimes contrast, and how we take things for granted, is that we did many years ago. We had a lawyer here who told me that he had a case against another lawyer, and he was upset with the other lawyer for doing the case, and a few days before they went to court, the other lawyer had some kind of severe medical incident, like I don't know, kidney stones or something else, and I think the other lawyer nearly died like this, and this person was telling me with a straight face, like he felt it was justified,
Right.
because
How we acted.
because the other lawyer we had the case against him. I'm like, you got to be kidding! Like, this is against everything we believe. So you have a lawyer who's against you, so therefore the guy should have a severe, major medical incident. Yeah, in his view, that was justice.
But that's
not
not
And it is
justice.
so that's why I say I was shocked enough to hear such an opinion, such a perspective that it stuck with me, and I remember, and that is 180 degrees against what we are speaking about here, especially in it's not a battlefield, it's a
Right.
it's a court. Okay? Okay, so 953 at the bottom.
Ready?
This is in Kitese. Yeah.
This is why the straps of the tefillin are black, for they are to reflect these black hairs of Zeranpin. Furthermore, the right strap is to be longer than the left one. Tefillin manifests the flow of consciousness from the intellect of Zeranpin, the man wearing them, downward. The head tefillin comprises 4 compartments, signifying Chokhmah, Bina, and the 2 aspects of Das, the 5 states of Chesed and the 5 states of Gevurah. The 2 sides of the straps, emerging from the head tefillin and encompassing the head, signify Chesed and Gevurah themselves. The knot at the rear of the head signifies Tiferes. 2 straps descending from the knot signify Nutzach and Hod. The straps are to be black in order to reflect the hair of Zeranpin, that is, the contracted flow of divine light into Nukva and the world in general. This is reflected in the fact that the parts of Leah is said to be situated behind the head of Zeranpin at the level of the knot of the head tefillin, while the parts of Rachel is in the hand tefillin itself. As we said, the female, both in woman in general as well as in the female aspect of man, is the warrior whose task it is to battle the materialism of this world. Thus, in the flow of divine energy reaching her through Zeranpin, the right side must predominate. Then the war will be able to be fought properly as described above.
And that's why the right strap of the tefillin is supposed to extend lower than the left strap. That is in Shulchan Aruch. If I could, all right. Every once in a while, the scribes, the Sophrim, come out with some like new insight. One of the pioneering Sophrim of the Babish community in Crown Heights, and the senior Sofer was Rabbi Zirkind, and he wrote our Torah that we use Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah and different holidays that we just repaired the crown for. So his kids told me that there are certain, I think, little crowns that extend upward from some of the letters, and I think they said that the one on the right should be taller than the one on the left. It's like maybe something. It's not like a major requirement. It's just based on what we learned here, that the chesed should be stronger than the gvura. And so they told me that their father repaired noticed that in someone's tefillin, and he corrected it. Some negative things in their lives turned around. Empirical evidence. So anyways, same idea. Okay. I mean, they add them afterwards? Yeah. No crowns? I think so. Maybe fill in.
No crowns on it? I don't know. Probably got one right there. No.
Yeah, I think the tefillin doesn't have to be scored. Torah scroll and this parchment is first scored. Okay, there we go. The crowns. These are samples. Yeah, it's a sample. not
I
good,
can't see
so
it.
they tore it, so that won't, no one will use it.
Yeah,
You know?
I saw.
And maybe it wasn't a crown, maybe it was something else. Maybe there was something else that it was, but it was. I remember you were telling me about it. The red whiskey. All right, go ahead.
I was stalling about crowns.
Or it could be kosher, but we don't want to use it. Kosher white. Kosher light.
Okay. Kosher
This is alluded to in the verse which opens the passage of the Torah. The numerical value of the word for when, ki, together with the first letter of the word for you, go out, say, tav, is that of the 5 names Elohim of the right side.
Oh,
The numerical value of ki, kaf yud, 20 plus 10 is 30. That of tav is 400. 400 plus 30 is 430. The numerical value of Elohim, as above, is 86.
five
Five,
states.
86. 5 times 86 is 430.
Those from ki say the first 3 letters: kaf, yud, and taf.
Like 86.5 times.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Wait, what? Thinking of a math person, something like that.
86, period.
It looks like 86.
You've been reading too many
I've
math
been
papers
doing
today.
math.
And there's a
All right, let's go ahead.
These aspects of the name Elohim appear in this verse with Hashem's proper name, the name Havaya. The verse continues to war against your enemies, and Hashem, Havaya, your Hashem Elohim, delivers him into your hand. Hashem's proper name is spelled Havaya, as read Adni. The numerical value of these together is 91. The numerical value of Amen. Havaya, Yud Hey Vav Hey is 10 plus 5 plus 6 plus 5, 26. Adni, Aleph Dalet Yud, 1 plus 4 plus 50 plus 10, 65. 26 and 65 is 91.
So,
Amen, Aleph Mem Nun is 1 plus 40 plus 50 is 91. This is also the numerical value of the meaning of the remaining letters of the word for go out. Titzei. Titzei is spelled out Tav Tzadik Aleph, numerical value of the final 2 letters. Tzadik Aleph, 90 plus 1 is 91.
one moment.
Wow.
So, Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is 26. We haven't talked a lot about that. It's not given a lot of airtime. Most when people give stucca, they like to give in things of 18, like 1800, 18,000.
Oh. I see where you've been lately.
And so 1836 and 54 and so on. And for much we talk about Hashem's name, we talk about the expanded spelling of Yud Kei Vav Kei. So we're talking about 72, 63, 45, and 52. So, but here we're talking about just about the name itself, which is 26. But how do we pronounce it? We pronounce it as the name Aleph Dalet Nun Yud. So even though in the pasuk it doesn't use the name Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, but we're saying it.
Right, that's how we read.
Yeah. So they kind of go together, and together it's 91. Because we don't know that's how we do it. We don't even know the vowels. For hundreds of years already, or thousands of years, we don't know the vowels for Hashem's name, and we're instructed to use the name Aleph, to pronounce the name Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, except in the Beis Hamikdash, when the Kohanim would give the blessing, they would say Yivarecha Hashem v'Yishmerecha, So Hashem would be Hashem's name. And also in a couple weeks, we'll read on Yom Kippur. Yes, it's only a couple weeks to Yom Kippur. We'll read that the Kohen Gadol would recite the pasuk. He would recite also using Hashem's name, and the Kohanim and the Leviim would do what? They would sing in a crescendo, so that people wouldn't hear how to pronounce Hashem's name. Yes. Yeah. Huh? Under the table. Okay. It's all legal. Doesn't have to be. So anyway, so that is Ki, Kaf, Yud, and Tuf is 430, which is 86 times 5. And then the next two letters, Sadik and Aleph, 91 for Yud Ke Vav Ke and Aleph Dal Yud together.
Amen.
Amen. Also amen. All right.
This then is the implication of this verse. When you go out, alludes to the 5 names Elohim on the right side, together with Hashem's proper name Havaya, as we have said, to war against your enemies. In this way, then is a sure thing that Hashem, your Hashem, that is Hashem as manifest in these 2 names Havaya and Elohim, will deliver him into your hand. Your hand alludes to the 5 names Elohim of the right side, reflected in the 5 fingers of the right hand. Then you will capture its captives. Thus, success in the war against evil is predicated on holy conduct, as opposed to fighting evil with evil conduct.
And of course, the capturing the captives is is referred to the holy sparks, which I called my teacher a couple weeks ago, who taught me this parsha. So we learned it very thoroughly. So I like to call him to thank him, and I remember him giving us that commentary that refers to capturing the holy sparks. The captives that are the captives. Okay, and obviously and the pasuk is going to say, the Torah is going to say that it refers to the seeing a woman and taking her captive, not just for captivity, but as during the war or battle or after the battle, to have relations with her, and then you're not allowed to keep her as a slave, but then you bring her back and she becomes your wife. Okay, you want to continue, Jim?
Here, come from the Rebbe. This comes from the Rebbe in the Torah.
Different Likutei Torah.
Different Likutei.
This is the Arizal.
This is the Arizal. I didn't realize. Okay. As you know, 5 states of Gevurah in their mature state are almost like states of mercy. They subdue the powers of evil, who derive their sustenance from immature consciousness. So mature Gevurah. This is particularly true of the 5 states of Gevurah within Abba, the right axis of Zeranpin, as is alluded to in the verse, your right arm, O God, is glorious in power. They can subdue the powers of evil most effectively. This is why the straps of tefillin on the right side, which are black as a raven, right, are longer than those on the left side. The left side must not develop fully, even in mature consciousness. The right side is more mature, it's developed.
Yeah, there's missing something.
But it's still Gevurah. It's the Gevurah within Abba, on the right axis of Zeranpin.
Hold on, if you guys give me 1 second. What does he say about the right hand, right arm of Hashem, glorious in power?
Oh, you mean quote?
What does it say? I'm asking you.
That
Abba on the right axis of Ze'er Anpin? Okay. So what it's saying is there's some kind of, go back to the top of the page. It says the 5 states of Gvura almost become
Like
states of mercy.
like
Yeah.
so the mature Gevura, unlike immature Gevura, is like almost like Hassan says.
Okay. So now it says your right arm is glorious in power. So power is Gevura, and yet it refers to it as the right arm. Really, we know Gvura is on the left, but here it's called a right arm because it acts like Chesed. Give me a minute.
if it's a reflection,
I'm hearing you.
the right my right is your left.
I'm hearing. Yeah, I'm listening. Possibly. Maybe that's regular Gvura. Maybe regular Gvura is tough love.
The power, the powerful term Hashem, we speak of as the right arm, don't we?
Because it's the Gevura with the Ava. That's on the right axis.
It says here in Rashi. Well, first go back to the pasuk. This verse, your right arm, O God, is glorious in power, is from the Shira, Az Yashir, that the people sang after crossing the Red Sea.
Okay.
And the Torah says, your right hand, Hashem, is glorified with strength.
Mm-hmm.
Your right hand, Hashem, smashes the enemy. And Rashi says that there are 2 right hands. When the Jewish people do the will of Hashem, the left hand turns into a right hand. The left arm of strong judgment then it goes in, and we have a double dose of chesed. And that's the right arm that's performing chesed, which is smashes the enemy. I guess it's chesed for us.
Yeah.
So that's what he says here. I think your right arm is glorious in power, that even though it's typically with Gevura, but it acts like a right arm and does chesed.
So this is mature, not quite the sweetest, whatever.
Mature, it's developed, whatever.
The esoteric meaning of when you go out to war. The numerical value of the initials of the 2 Hebrew words for go out to war, Tetzi Lamilchama,
So yeah.
is the same as 5 times that of the name Elohim. The remaining 2 letters of the word you go out, allude to the 5 names Elohim, 5 states of mature Gevura that appear with the names Kavaya and Adni.
Oh, 1 minute. I want to remind you before you go on that what we learned on the last page came from Sefer Likutim of the Arizal,
Right.
and this comes from Likutei Torah. So it's a different book, but
Mostly the same.
it's the same general idea, but there are differences in the details.
Perspective.
That's why it's not, hey, we just said this on the page before. Why are you saying it again? These are
Okay.
from two different books.
Mhm.
So it's a different idea. So it's different, it's presented again.
Yeah. So the initials of Tetzi Lamilchama are Tuf Lamed, so that equals 400 plus 30, 430. We have here. The numerical value of the name Elohim is 86. So again, 5 times 86, 430. Note that in this exposition, the 30 is arrived at by the initials of the two relevant words rather than by the numerical value of the preceding word ki as it was above.
In the other book, in Sefer Likutim, we
Ki.
got 30 from the word ki,
Right, ki.
say. And in this book, Sefer Likutei Torah, we get the 30 from the first letter of the next word, or the following word, Lamilchama.
Just thank you both for initial. Okay,
Mhm.
That's ki, this is Lamed.
Lamed. Okay. So when these conditions exist, it is a foregone conclusion that God, your God, will deliver them into your hands, for the state of mature consciousness will subdue them.
This is what?
The state of mature consciousness, which is the maturity of Gevurah. He says the 5 states of Gevurah in their mature state are almost like states of mercy. That's in the top. So mature consciousness is talking about mature Gevurah consciousness. Subdue.
Let me go back a minute. It says, when these conditions exist. Which conditions?
Of mature consciousness or mature Gevurah, when that exists in war, Hashem will, your God will subdue them. Or when Chesed comes in war over Gevurah, Hashem will subdue them. That was the previous. Now this one is the mature consciousness subduing. It's just taking it from the mature form of Gevurah.
Yeah. So,
That's
so the
what he
conditions
says.
are that the 5 states are in the mature state.
How do they get in the mature state?
How do they get to the mature state? They come from the Abba, which in Zeranpin, which would have to be in the parts of, so it's the highest form, it would have to come through that. So Zeranpin as a parts of in Abba
What I'm thinking of,
would have to be the control.
what I'm thinking of
So that's how it would have to be.
is that we set those conditions. They depend on us.
But we have to open up to that.
It depends on us that, to what?
Open up to that. I don't know how we don't set it. We set the groundwork, but we open up to the Abba. If
We have to turn that the states of Gevurah should be
mature,
proper,
right?
developed, proper.
That's why Abba is so important. So you have to have your mind, your mental status, really from Chachma, from the beginning to control your emotions. That's where this comes from. Your mental process controls the therantin, all of the emotion. And it isn't just a shallow mental process, it's a process from Abba, which originates in the Chachma piece. It's that part that's got to really control and then flow through Bina, the Das, and through the emotions. That's how Gevurah, that form of Gevurah, becomes mature. If you have that flow, Abba, ultimately control those emotions, then then your Gevura has been mature. Oh,
So it depends on us.
depends on us.
We control that. We're in charge of the valve.
We're in charge of the valve.
And so when we go out to war, we have to achieve a certain spiritual state.
We have to achieve that spiritual
and
state.
then what
for
happens?
Hashem to be able
Then automatically things fall into place,
which is
and
why-
Hashem subdues the enemy.
We're not going out for vengeance. We're going out.
Well, not for vengeance,
That's one
or
point.
we're also going out to his will. That's
To his
why
will,
there are
right.
times in we read tribes of Benjamin went out. Not they shouldn't have gone out at that point, and they got killed after the spies piece. So it depends. Depends. That's not doing his will, and you
But
have to get to that level of consciousness. Then you mature.
That's why in the Torah we read that the Kohanim would declare that anyone who is afraid and weak of heart should leave, just like the person who does the initial stage of marriage,
Right.
but hasn't completed the marriage process. Someone who plants a vineyard, but hasn't finished.
It's an immaturity.
So
It's an
too, but a
immaturity.
person goes back, leaves if they or builds a house. But so too, person leaves the battle if they it says if they're afraid.
Right.
And there are two opinions. One says that it means if they are literally afraid and cannot stand up to the stresses of battle. The other one says if they're afraid because they know that they have sins that will work against them, and so then we allow them to leave too. And that's perhaps what this is. The person has to be confident in their past, that they're going to, that Hashem will protect them. All right? Yes.
They have to mature. Why?
Always.
Always works out.
They
go either way.
I'd like
Okay.
Go for it.
I think that it's really applying to day-to-day life.
What?
Day-to-day life, man. That we have our battles. War is one thing. Formal war is one thing. I don't know that necessarily Torah defined war as we know it militaristically. I think the war that's discussed in Torah is a holy war. And this is the difference of opinion between Ki and Tetzela Mochama is trying to point out that it's not just within these militaristic wars, it's battles we are confronted with.
agree.
That's why I think one is pointing out that yes, there are the rules of confrontation, and then there's the rules of how you deal on a daily basis.
I think it's also the internal we have as well, not just in what we exist in our world outside of us, but our internal wars that are going on. We have to face our own enemy and we have to face our own stuff within our own Yates and Hora. We have to face, and we have to face it from a mature set of Gevura or a Chesed. We have to go at it from a high place, because if we don't, we're destined to be succumbing to it.
So David Amela all the time in the book of Psalms, he writes about the enemies. Like we say, the David Hashemar Vishi, and so on. We're talking about the enemies and people we're fighting against, and this is clearly for the challenges that we face every day. Now, what's the word for war or battle? Milchama. What's the word for bread? Lechem and milchama are the same word. You have to fight for your livelihood. Struggle.
Struggle.
As an aftermath, would have been need for House of Mashiach. Adam Arishon had not done what he did.
Adam Rishon was the struggle. He was the struggle. That's
Adam Arishon?
not Adam Rishon. Adam was the struggle. Not man,
Yeah,
not Adam Rishon.
It was
I
created.
understand, but Adam, not Harishon, but Adam was to struggle. That was his primary, you want to call it punishment, whatever you want to call it. He had the sweat of his brow and whatever it was called, but the sweat that was right there. And then, although I think that was
We concluded that Plan B was the original plan. Actually, remember I read it, I think 2 weeks ago, whoever was here, I read from the Shalah, and he writes about that.
The first couple of years I said that to you, and you said, no way, and it's a lot.
My brother found a medrash. It talks about. Okay, we are now 9:56, and Gershon, you are honored.
What?
9:56.
As you know, no.
Oh, and this is
Oh.
1 minute. This is both Sefer Likutim and Likutei Torah, so it's a combo, a double header.
We must now inquire as to the statements of our sages that the soldier is permitted to engage in sexual intercourse with a beautiful woman. Well,
yes, it does.
see that?
Yeah, it does.
Was during the war, and that the Torah in this passage acquiesces to the evil inclination.
This is one of the. This is one. What?
If it wasn't beautiful, the soldier wouldn't care.
Is everyone familiar with the passage in Torah?
It's right
In the
here.
beginning.
Deuteronomy 21, 10, 14.
Okay. So this is as long she doesn't we learn out from the Torah that even if she's not attractive,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Beautiful doesn't necessarily mean attractive.
This case does. So in any case, the Torah.
From his
All right. Yes, let's go ahead. So he's allowed to engage once, and then he brings her home and the whole story there. Hey, Gershon.
According to our sages, Torah permits beautiful within the parameters described in this passage. He must marry her, because otherwise he would not be able to resist her.
This is one of the perspectives. Yes, one of the perspectives, ways of looking at it. In war, if the Torah doesn't permit him to have relations with her, then he's going to sin anyway.
Oh.
So the Torah says, okay, you're allowed to do it in war. Yeah.
Because the soldier cannot conquer his urge, must the Torah then permit her?
We have a series of questions.
Must the Torah then permit her to? If this is so then let the Torah do the same with all other provisions.
Yeah, there's a very well-known, famous question on this. Secondly,
it is stated further the Torah that one of the punishments for national wrongdoing is that Hashem will return you to Egypt and you will be sold there to your enemies as slaves, handmaidens, and no one will buy. Yeah. Why is causing us to return to Egypt a punishment? Torah does indeed tell us that you will see them, the Egyptians, no more. But is going against the Torah command a punishment?
There's
Well,
what's so
it's
yeah.
a warning. It's not a for
It's one way of looking at it.
closure. It's not saying this will happen to you. No, if then, okay. Thirdly, why did Hashem say this about Egypt but not about other exiles? Why is he against our returning to Egypt but permits us to travel to Babylonia or Media? Media, where is it? Where is Media?
Next to Babylonia.
Yes,
Provinces.
Iran. Babylonia is Iraq.
I think it's part of Iran. In other words, today
Yeah.
we've got these huge.
It's not time Mesopotamia, right?
Sure. Turn right.
All right. Fourthly, why did our sages normally speak of only four exiles, Babylonia, Media, Greece, and Edom, as in the verse, and behold, the dark fear, that's from...
That's from the Brisbane of Sarim, the covenant between the parts.
Mhm. But the exile of Egypt, which was more severe than any of these, is not mentioned together with them.
It says a few words that there's Hema and Afrite, Chashecha, darkness, Gadola, great, the fellows of I think, and that falls on him. So each of the words alludes to another of the. Yeah, Egypt doesn't count with it.
Finally, why is Exodus mentioned in Torah 50 times? To answer
that yes, so leaving Egypt is mentioned 50 times in the Torah.
Well,
We've had that number.
We had the same thing. Listen to the next piece.
All right. The four exiles correspond to the four letters of the name Havaya, and the exile of Egypt to the upper tip of the Yud, which outweighs them all and is greater than they. The four letters of the name Havaya correspond to Chochmah, Bina, the Midos, and Malchus, respectively, while the upper tip of the Yud correspond to Kesv, the source of all them all, the source of them all. Superconscious is more powerful, and its representation therefore more crucial than all the other powers of the soul. Therefore, it is mentioned repeatedly in the Torah, and it's not mentioned together with the other exiles, but it is in its class by itself. Now, the purpose of exiles is to elevate the fallen sparks of holiness that were scattered all over the earth and were mixed in with the evil due to the sin of Adam. This is the meaning of the verse. There is a time when a man overcomes another man to his detriment. Okay.
Ecclesiastes.
Solomon,
Can you pronounce that?
Ecclesiastes.
Very good.
Meaning that the evil man overcomes the holy man to his own detriment. For the fact that he oppresses Israel and rules them allows Israel to totally extract from him all the sparks of holiness. I remember that. Evil man and holy man here mean the forces of evil and good. Just as in the vision of Ezekiel, the array of divine attributes flowing into creation had the form of a man, and the anatomy of terrestrial man reflects its organization of forces. So are the forces of evil arranged in a form.
Therefore,
But
therefore, it's called man, evil man, holy man. Well done.
Okay. Recap.
Yes.
So
this is really important.
Which
one?
The answer.
Yes.
Why is not mentioned with the others? Super excited. And
that's it.
That's the only question we answered?
Yeah, but something else is really important.
Yes.
Which we had also 2-3 weeks ago, last few weeks. And last week I think everyone was there, but 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, one was missing here, one was missing there. There are 288 sparks. Those are general sparks, by the way. That's like from Atzilus. They fall down, they're 288. But they break up into smaller pieces as they go to Bria, and then to Yetzira, and then to Sia. They break up into many small splinters. So we go to Egypt, and what's going on in Egypt? We're stuck. We are under control of the Egyptians. What happens, and we did mention this,
Yeah.
The Israelites,
and we turn Egypt into an sea that is void of fish. And another opinion is we turn it into a net that, I think, either to a net or to a storage that has no granary with no grain. To who was here when you must have been here. And we learned it in this class, maybe 4 weeks ago. So, and we leave Egypt, and here it is. We leave Egypt with Erev Rav, with 202 of the sparks that we take out. Of the 288, 202 go out with us from Egypt. The Erev Rav went out with them. Rav being 202. Okay, now we only got 86 left. And we suck everything out of Egypt, and we leave. If you look in Rashi, in the Chumash, it says that we turned it into like an empty shell. Like with those two things that I just said. Yeah, dear. So they,
No point to go back there because
we clean them out, we wipe them out. And so wherever we go, they think that they're in charge of us, they're controlling us. But really, we suck the divine energy out of them. Huh? Double agent. Actually, did you ever see like the you ever see the dead animal, and then after a few days the dead animal's still there, but you realize that it's just a shell. The flies and everything have taken out. Right? You walk by. No, we've had it. Or I highly recommend from I think Bill Bonner. He writes about the empires. I can't remember which book it is. And he says this is the nature of empires, colonialism. The nation, the big powers, they think they're gonna be very clever. They go on to build their empire, whether it's Spain, whether it's England, Portugal, Belgium, and then they colonize these, in let's say the African continent or wherever. And in the end, they think they're gonna suck all the wealth out of them, and they'll get rich. And he says, in the end, they always are creating their own collapse. My phone's over there. Brilliant analysis, and he describes in great detail. And of course, how America does. The difference is that when the other nations do it, they actually suck the wealth out from the country, and then they end up going down. He says America ends up sending all our money to the other place instead. So we can't even get that part of it right. And when did it start? When did the colonialism begin in America?
Well, after,
The Rough Riders.
Inquisition.
The Rough Riders in America. Teddy Roosevelt in Cuba, right? Was the Rough Riders. Imperialism. That's what I mean. Imperialism, that's where we started it. It started from there. Monroe Doctrine. Right, we've been away from there. Okay.
Where the heck are we?
9:58 at the top. Gershon, you still got energy?
Okay.
Let's do a little more, and we'll find a place to stop.
9:58. What?
Yeah, at the top.
And wherever they go, the Shekinah, the divine presence, goes with them in order to elevate her component parts. The divine presence accompanies the Jewish people in their exile in order to reconstruct herself out of the fallen sparks of her shattered self.
Wow. Never seen that before.
That's why we're in exile. Oh.
To reconstruct herself. The Shekinah needs to reconstruct herself. We are.
Of Tikkun Olam, whatever.
Yeah, Tikkun Olam.
That is why we're commanded not to return to Egypt.
Not just Tikkun Olam.
Okay.
I said that. Go ahead. I'll tell you.
but are not so prohibited in regard to other nations that have oppressed us, for we have not yet elevated all the divine sparks within them. And they emptied out Egypt, meaning that during the Egyptian exile, the Jewish people elevated all the divine sparks that inherit that culture and country. Is that correct? Inherit to
I'll assume it's correct. They
inherit
emptied out Egypt. It says when they
that word
they borrowed all the gold, silver, and clothing, garments.
why the punishment for wrongdoing is that Hashem will return you to Egypt in sheep. Egypt corresponds to the upper tip of the U, and there remain divine sparks to elevate in the other lands, which are in comparison to Egypt like the body is to the head. Israel must return to Egypt. By returning to Egypt, the general exile, Israel can then proceed to elevate whatever sparks remain in the derivative exiles of the other nations.
Okay, so being that Egypt is like the head, so instead of going to treat or deal with the part of the body, we go straight to, we deal with it through the head.
As a means leftovers?
As a means, in other words, by going back to Egypt and elevating Egypt more, then we're able to extract the sparks that are stuck like in, I don't know, Buenos Aires or something, Argentina.
All right. Well, okay.
So that's in Egypt. But why?
Where did you,
Yemen.
Yemen.
yeah, I told you Yemen.
Yes, you did.
Frowny.
But why is that an answer to the question? One moment. Why is that an answer to the question?
They're in comparison to Egypt, like the body to the head. We have to go back. I think.
That's what you're saying, that but this
is the tip of the yud. This is the tip of the yud. We have to go back to Kesser.
But that's what will happen if we don't do things right.
Well,
No.
I think we have to.
Pyramids are cute, but
Okay, I'm
You will return to Egypt.
I'm missing
It
something.
ships.
Let's continue.
but
Maybe we'll
for
see.
Egypt itself, no one will buy. When there were sparks of holiness embedded within them, they desired to rule over Israel. But since Egypt has already been totally refined, they no longer have any desire to enslave Israel. Therefore, they will not want to buy them as slaves, buy us.
Yeah.
Returning ships, but then no one will buy us. No one will buy them.
98.
I'm just thinking Nasser, whatever. Anyhow,
Nasser?
yeah, because now we are okay.
This was part of it. You will be returned in ships, and no one will buy you as slaves. It was part of the night.
No, them is them. They Israel. Yeah.
At this point, I want to share a story to answer some of the questions. That Rabbi Mendel Futterfass was a Lubavitcher Chassid who was 10 or 15 years in Siberia, and not by choice. And he made it through. He lived through, and he talked often about the experience and what he learned as a Chassid. We have many stories from him. So one of the stories that he told was when he would, I guess they would go out to work, and he would, let's say, to the forest, and he would go off to the side to daven. So he would imagine that it could be that for 5,700 years since creation, that no one has ever said a blessing or a prayer on this spot. And he's thinking about the privilege and the magnitude of his bracha that he's doing right now. Although it could be 10, 20 degrees, he's wearing, thin, shabby clothes and so on. They have to work all day. But this is what occurred. This is what he thought about. So that wherever we go, we say a bracha there, so we have a chance to elevate that place, and that's what connects with over here. I think if we don't stop here, I think we're going to end up going till 10 o'clock.
Just
Goodbye.
I did it again. It's like I had a time warp. Another time warp. Oh, total time warp. No, this class.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to be when we're going to meet again. It might not go for 4 weeks.